Yes, it's the best time of the week. Time to watch my favorite D&D YouTubers, Drake and Josh, talk about D&D. Let's see what they have for me today. Okay, Drake and Josh. Oh, silly me, I always forget. It's not Drake and Josh, it's Jake and Josh. Silly me, how forgetful. Alright, J&J Tabletop. Let's see what content they got for me today. J&J Tabletop. 3 best cleric subclasses. That sounds fun. Does Spirit Shroud suck? That's a picture of me. Sorry, at this crits, Spirit Shroud is awful. Well, that's just wrong. Okay, so these two schmucks made a video calling me out specifically because I happen to say that I like Spirit Shroud. I guess they disagree, so let's see what they got.
Hey Josh, I was checking out Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and I came across a really cool 3rd level spell. Only takes a bonus action.
It's a great spell.
And then when you hit a creature with an attack, you deal an extra d8 of damage.
Yeah, that sounds good.
A third?
But he left out information. Left out important information. This right here is grade A misinformation. Or willful ignorance.
That a 3rd level spell?
Yeah.
Isn't that's kind of like Hunter's Mark? Almost, except Hunter's Mark is 1st level.
Calm down, Discount Superman. We'll get there, okay?
Welcome back to J&J Tabletop.
Whoa, Josh. We should be welcoming you back.
Yeah, because I was there while you were gone, and now you're calling me out? A little worried about your position at J&J Tabletop? Afraid it's going to be J and L Tabletop, or even L and J Tabletop? No, I don't like the sound of that, actually. Never mind.
Yeah, that's fair. I did just finish up a move, so I've been gone for a couple weeks. And
good. Just kidding, Josh. I love you.
Recently, we had our friend Lee from This Crits come on, and he's awesome, sometimes misguided. We'll talk about that.
You see that? That's the smile of a liar. Calls it as I sees it.
Maybe we could have a little conversation about whether it's actually worth that 3rd level spot or not.
It is.
It's a good idea.
I
And
think so.
Lee, if you're watching this, just know this
me.
is personal.
You stupid This is... Look at that stupid grin. Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at. When you can get something for a 1st level spell that does something so similar and in a lot of ways better.
How does it do it any better? It's the same damn thing. It has so much more to it. Okay, let's see what he has to say.
Is it really worth that 3rd level spell? Like, I think you mentioned it before. Like, that's a pretty big opportunity cost for.
But okay, so he says it's a huge opportunity cost for other 3rd level options, all right? Consider the other classes that have availability of Spirit Shroud, right? We have the Cleric. Cleric, whatever 3rd level spells does a Cleric have? I mean, it definitely not Fireball, that's the main one I'm thinking about. Paladin, another 3rd level spell slot user that can take this spell, granted at a much higher level, but they can use its spell, and it doesn't have access to other spells like Fireball. There you go, another easy 3rd level spell slot. The only 2 is Wizard and Warlock, and I would not suggest taking Spirit Shroud on a Wizard. That's just silly. And then Warlock, if you're a Hexblade, this spell's like perfect for you. It's like better than Hex, whereas Hunter's Mark is only available to the Ranger or a specific subclass of, I think, Paladin. So consider that when you're talking about, oh, accessibility, oh, it's not as good, it's taking up an important spell slot. It really isn't, because the classes that can take the spell are not really using that 3rd level spell slot efficiently unless they pick up this spell. Or, granted, there's other good 3rd level spells, but there's not anywhere near as big a gap as he's making it seem.
Comparing Spirit Shroud with Hunter's Mark or Hex, they're both concentration.
Yep.
It's a D8 versus a D6.
Yep.
So that is something, right?
Yeah, that's something. I mean, I think
I heard that stupid smirk through his voice. I heard, yeah, that's something. I heard it, Jake.
the playtest material with 1D&D would have you think that the flex option is really in play here, where you just move that D6 to a D8 and it's the most powerful one out
huge
there.
difference. Okay,
And that is a direct quote.
Oh, jeez. Well, That's a thing. As far as duration, Hunter's Mark and Hex, they're both going to last for an entire hour, whereas Spirit Shroud, it lasts 1 minute,
talk about why?
and most people are going to tell you a minute. It's just not long enough.
I bet it's long enough for you, Josh. That was cruel. I'm sorry. I love you. And no, but this statement right here is a little bit disingenuous, right? Because he's correct that Spirit Shroud lasts a minute, Hunter's Mark and Hex lasts an hour, but Hunter's Mark is really flavored and meant as a tracking and bonus damage spell, right? That's what it's meant to be as a ranger. Spirit Shroud's main objective is to get in the middle of a fight and just cause a big ol' mess, specifically with the movement speed reduction and the extra damage you deal. So it's not meant to last an hour because no combat lasts an hour, and if it does, you're playing the wrong kind of game.
Yes, they will, Josh.
And then as far
They
as
made the joke I just made.
You know, the extra damage that you do with Spirit Shroud, that target has to be within 10 feet of you. There's no such limitation with Hunter's Mark and Hex. You know, they could be 30 feet, they could be 40 feet, they could be farther away, and you could still do that damage. That's pretty significant. I think it just comes down to the question of, are those other benefits that you get from Spirit Shroud, are they enough to make it worth a third level slot as opposed to a first level slot?
His reasoning is correct, but he is missing the context as to why this is a good spell comparatively to Hunter's Mark or Hex. He's just looking at the level, the damage, the duration, the range, and that's all that they're talking about. They're not talking about the accessibility of the spell, right? Ranger is the only class that can take Hunter's Mark naturally, unless you're a subclass of some other, I think, Paladin. Spirit Shroud, 4 other classes. And if we're being honest, you know what? Let's go through this right now. Okay, let's take a look at the 3rd level cleric spells just to prove my point here, okay? 3rd level cleric spells. Animate Dead, that's a good spell, but realistically must have, I don't think so. Beacon of Hope, that's a good spell as well, but I wouldn't say must have. Clairvoyance, create food and water. Dispel magic, it's a pretty good spell. Life Transference, Glyph of Warding, Magic Circle, Mass Healing Word. That's probably one that I would say might have been a must-have if it were just for clerics. Revivify, Sending, Spirit Guardians, and then Spirit Shroud. So I feel it is very disingenuous to just say Spirit Shroud is taking up a coveted 3rd level spot, at least for clerics, but you know what? Let's look at Paladin as well. Paladins obviously get much more restricted spells since they're only half-casters, but still, considering that it is available to them, we should look at it. Things like Aura of Vitality, Blinding Smite, Crusader Mantle, I guess, Dispel Magic, Revivify, or Spirit Shroud. If you were a Paladin, I think Spirit Shroud's probably great for you, because you can just get right up in there with your sword and board, pop Spirit Shroud, deal extra damage with your hit, and lock down enemies with your movement speed. Okay, but you know what? Let's go a step further and look at Warlock. Warlocks have a much larger spell list available to them at the 3rd level comparatively to Paladins, but even still, the 3rd level spells that they can pick up are nowhere near must-haves. Realistically, Counterspell is probably the only one must-have on their list, but just looking at a couple of these, they also have Dispel Magic, which is pretty important, Major Image is pretty cool, Summon Fae, Summon Undead, Vampiric Touch, and wait a minute, Spirit Shroud. Out of all of those, I think Spirit Shroud's probably one of the better ones, and definitely the best if you're the Hexblade. I'm not going to go over the Wizard because we all know the Wizard list is kind of bananas, so we all understand that. But the other 3 classes that can use and get this spell just by being those classes are very easily able to make use of this spell. So take that into consideration when you're saying, haha, 3rd level spell slot, it's, taking up a coveted 3rd level slot, because realistically, the spells that have this spell, or have access to this spell, there's not much more that could take the spot anyways. So, their reasoning is correct, but their context of the situation is incorrect. Anyways, that's enough ranting. We're only halfway through the video, so let's go back.
Yeah, I think, damaging a creature and then they lose their ability to regain hit points until your next turn, I think that's nice.
That's not nice. That's huge. But
I'm not sure that by itself warrants the 2 extra levels in the spell slot, but that's at least something. But the one that I think gets emphasized a lot is the movement reduction.
100%.
And I think that's worth looking into because I can't help but wonder, like, how often are you...
What is that? Wait, whoa. What is this schmuck?
Can't help but wonder, like, how often are you...
What is this? It's like, it doesn't matter. Look at that.
Often are you going to find it a situation where it actually matters, right? So it's not like it's difficult terrain, which I think that would even alone just be a little simpler and make more sense to me. But any creature that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 feet. So it's kind of weird because if I start my turn within 10 feet of you, I will probably just take 1 step forward or 5 feet forward, and we're probably fighting melee. I don't know. I'm really having trouble wrapping my head around this mattering.
Yeah, I'm
So, well, I'll let him talk first.
I'm kind of right there with you on that. If it was like just creatures that you attack and then they lose that 10 feet of movement, then maybe it matters a little bit more, even
Why?
if it's just the first creature that you attack.
Why does that matter more? That doesn't, well...
And it doesn't stack, because then you could like run away and now they have to chase after you and they have less movement. But the fact that it's just creatures within 10 feet lose 10 feet, it's very, very, very situational. I can imagine the situation where, like, well, how about this? In one of our, I believe it was our first...
Before I get into this example, I want to dispute this because it's not very situational. If you pick Spirit Shroud, you have some sort of melee build. It's just, that's what the spell does. It's meant to be in melee, right? That's obviously what this is meant for. So saying that it's situational isn't true, because clearly if you're in melee, you run up to them and you're within 10 feet of them to even hit, or 5 feet of them to even hit them, so they're obviously within range of this. And if you're a paladin or something that likes to get in the nitty-gritty of things, you might be in range of multiple creatures. So it would affect more creatures than if it was just who you hit with your attack. I can see where they're going with it, but it doesn't make sense to me. I understand Jake's point a little bit better, where if you're already in a melee, they wouldn't necessarily try to run away. They would probably just be fighting you anyways. So I get what he's saying with that. And to be fair, that is a fair point. But realistically speaking, I kind of view Spirit Shroud as a way to jump into the center of the fray and just cause chaos. So the other squishier casters or other members of your team that are ranged can deal more damage to them over time. I know me and Jake have talked about this a lot. I have not talked with Josh about this a lot. But the thing that I love about this spell and other spells like Ray of Frost is the flat movement speed reduction. It's not difficult terrain, you're correct. But reducing your maximum movement speed can then stack with other effects like difficult terrain. Now, obviously, that's kind of cheating in the whole Hunter's Mark versus Spirit Shroud thing, but it's worth considering when we're talking about the overall conversation of effectiveness about, oh, it's 10 feet, it's situational, when it really isn't situational. It's actually pretty logical. Not to mention, it's a bonus action, so you get it right off the bat on your turn. But, all right, let's go into his example now.
What went wrong video where we talked about that critical role fight. They thought Laura needed to get away. So in an instance like that, you know, where they think that somebody is going to be chased after, you know, like, yeah, that could help. But I feel like you're almost better off with just a cantrip, like whatever
Ray
the
of
cold
Frost.
one is. Ray of Frost. Yeah, Ray of Frost. You know,
The cold one.
I mean, Ray of Frost is great, but it takes an action to use, right? If you're a paladin or if you're anything melee, you're going to want to take a melee attack because obviously you're going to have an extra attack. Ray of Frost is a single action. And yeah, it deals significant damage, I guess, or not insignificant damage, but you get the same effect with Spirit Shroud, plus an extra D8, plus your attack. I get what they're saying with it, but the sentiment's lost.
You bring up a good point. I mean, it could pair
No, he doesn't!
nicely with some other beats out there, like Polearm Master and Sentinel might lock someone in that zone for you, or it is...
I specifically didn't mention Polearm Master and Sentinel and stuff like that because that stuff's cheesy as hell, but I appreciate what he's saying.
Gonna help you chase after someone. I guess that would be the place this would work, right? You're pursuing someone. They use their action to disengage, they run away, but you probably still would catch up because for the most part everybody has a speed of 30 feet. So, I don't know, it just seems weird.
even in the instance where somebody's running away, it's like if you're within 10 feet of them, then it doesn't... How helpful is this? I don't know. I have a really hard time trying to make excuses for this speed reduction. And I love speed reduction abilities.
Oh,
I just
yeah, we
don't
love
think this is a
movement.
good one.
And then the other
I mean, he says that, but he's completely discrediting it. But it's all right.
difference we talked about is upcasting it can actually up the damage that you deal. This will go, oh, maybe you have my attention, but it's not like a level 4 slot makes it 2d8. You have to go every 2. So now you're just upping the cost that much more for even what I would consider less gain. And this is where opportunity costs, like we mentioned, like a level 4 slot could be a polymorph, a level 5 slot could be a cone of cold. Like you start looking at some of these other, if you this is on the paladin list, you can just smite them with it. Like just deal all those extra damage up front. Clean, done, and if you're a vengeance paladin, you can still concentrate on Hunter's Mark anyways. So here you go.
I mean, yeah, but you can still concentrate on Spirit Shroud and Smite. I don't understand what your point is there. Let's rewatch that. I missed it.
The level 5 slot could be a cone of cold. Like you start looking at some of these other, if you this is on the paladin list, you can just smite them with it. Like just deal all those extra damage up front.
Oh, he's saying if you upcast it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, if you upcast it, you're only going to get to upcast it to 5th level, right? Because you don't have 7th level spell slots, so consider that. But 2d8 extra damage. I think a smite at level 5 is what? An extra... Okay, so it would be 7d8, except there's a maximum of 5d8 for a divine smite, so consider that. Which in itself is kind of bananas. But if you do that, and we're talking about upcasting Spirit Shroud, you're a paladin. You get extra attacks. Every attack you get 2, meaning you would get 4d8 per round, meaning in 1.5 turns you would thereby deal more damage than a smite. I get what he's saying with this, but it's only a turn and a half worth of attacks that will deal more damage than that smite you were just talking about. So, again, wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. And talking about 5th level spells and smites, you could potentially banish someone with the smite with the 5th level spell, and you would deal 5d10 damage instead of 2d8. So
what you're saying is you're spending that concentration to instead smite once for 1 5d10 damage. 5d10 of damage for 1 round, again, like we just said, is a normal 5th level spell slot. You will deal the same amount of damage in 2 rounds of attacks. Not to mention, if you have Spirit Shroud up, and then you decide to attack and then smite on top of that, you're dealing smite plus the Spirit Shroud damage. So we're completely ignoring the facts of how this functions. Because realistically, if you're going to spend a 5th level spell slot on a Banishing Smite, I understand that, but you're wasting concentration on it. If you're going to be doing one and done attack, fine, 100% you're right, Banishing Smite's the way to go. But let's be honest, no fight is a one and done fight, right? It just isn't. In 2 rounds, you'll deal more damage. So let's see how they end the video, because I don't know.
I don't know. It seems like it's asking for a lot and really not delivering. For me personally, I would rather, if I'm looking for just that like extra damage dealing, I'm probably going to use a Hunter's Mark, or if I have access to it, maybe a Hex.
If you have access to it, consider that.
If I need something that's going to limit movement, maybe a plant growth, maybe a spike growth. In my opinion, I think.
Where are you getting those from? Where those spells aren't available to paladins or clerics or warlocks for that matter, I don't think. I'm pretty sure those are like druids and bard spells, right? Yeah, this guy's a buffoon. Yeah, these are very different. You're talking about different classes here.
I think that's gonna help your economy with your spell slots and everything a whole lot better than Spirit Shroud. But what do I know? I don't play casters.
It shows. You're not even considering the fact that paladins, any of the classes that use Spirit Shroud, can use those other spells you were saying are better.
But I think this would be the one caster video we might be able to get you with, because you love Rangers and Hunter's Mark.
Yeah.
But if you like Spirit Shroud, I genuinely want to hear the situations in which you believe it shines. And yes, Lee, that includes you. And I know this might seem like we're just attacking you, but really, I'm just not seeing it. Because even the extras with Hunter's Mark and Hex, even though they're also kind of niche, they feel more useful when it comes up. Right?
I don't understand it. I mean, yeah, the track things, I get it. But, like, Hunter's Mark is a single target.
You know, maybe, you know, ability check disadvantage stuff. Like, that just seems like it's a more clean exchange. So let us know what you think about that in the comment section, and
They're wrong.
let us know if there's any other spells that you'd like us to compare or features, and maybe we could make that video next. So don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and give a friend a high five. Does that sound good, Josh?
Yeah, that sounds good. Also, if you could comment smelly, like
I can't. You absolute idiot. You guys.
I don't know, however you want to spell it.
That's how we know you made it to the end.
Smelly. Yeah.
Oh boy.
You schmuck. Yeah, so my final thoughts on that video are that they're missing one main huge component, which is context. This whole conversation, it's great theoretically, but they don't use any context to back up their claims. And I love you guys. I'm not shitting on you. I'm really not. But you're completely discrediting the fact that Hunter's Mark is available to two Rangers and a very varied subclass of Paladin. That is a very niche segment of players that can utilize that spell, while Spirit Shroud is available to 4 classes. Not to mention, those classes are Cleric, Paladin, Warlock, and Wizard. Obviously, Cleric and Paladin don't get access to Fireball or other great 3rd level spells, or even Plant Growth or Spirit Shroud, or Plant Growth or Spike Growth like you mentioned in the video. Warlock and Wizard obviously have more leeway with their spell list, but Warlock doesn't have great 3rd level spells either. Wizard's the only one that I really wouldn't suggest this one on, and obviously Hexblade Warlock is ideal for this one, but considering that, you're also not considering the fact that the movement speed is much more impactful than you're thinking, because if you use this spell, you're in the fray a lot. And I understand the reasoning of like, yeah, if they're in the melee, they won't run away anyways, and you're technically right and correct about that, but at the same time, if they do run away or attempt to get away from you, then they can't, right? They just can't. If your party members are more than 20 feet away, those enemies aren't getting to them, regardless of how hard they try. So you're literally meant to be a wall, and Spirit Shroud helps do that, and it makes that wall hurt a little bit more. And then the whole thing with upcasting this spell, comparing it to other smite spells, is all kind of redundant, because you deal more damage over time with this spell, and they know that. They already know that. That's just math. They understand how math works. More damage over time is much more valuable than a lot of damage one time, right? Because I don't know about you, but I've never had a significant combat that has lasted a single round of attacks. And if we're being honest, Spirit Shroud over 3, 4, 5 rounds can deal upwards of anywhere from 1d8 to 15d8, which is huge, especially if you upcast a spell. They're also forgetting something very important in the fact that this doesn't just work with melee attacks, this also works with other things like Spiritual Weapon. So if you have a Paladin or a Cleric that uses Spiritual Weapon, that is 2 melee attacks with their action, and then a bonus action attack with Spiritual Weapon, meaning that at minimum you're dealing an extra 3d8 per round when you're attacking. So consider that. I guess the last thing I want to say too is they're very different spells meant for very different purposes, meant for very different classes. The lack of context in the video really takes it down for me, and I think you guys, honestly, you've been voted off the island. So thank you for watching. I meant this all personally, and I hope you take it personally, feel bad, and cry yourself to sleep at night, because honestly, this was pretty poor showing. Anyways, we should do a live stream about this. But yeah, thanks, bye.